It is divisional round weekend in the NFL. Some great matchups here. The final 8 teams are left standing. No better person to break down this weekend, get it ready to go than Matt Verderame, national NFL reporter for Fansided. Follow Matt on Twitter, I should say, at Matt Verderame. Stack in the Box podcast host. Great NFL mind. It is Matt Verderame. Matt, thanks so much for giving us a few minutes here. How are you?
Good. How are you?
We're doing well. We are doing well. So obviously, divisional round weekend, right, just upon us, a few days away. But before we do that, some breaking news this morning is it seems Urban Meyer, Jacksonville Jaguars are going to get together, finalizing a deal right now to have Urban become the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Do you think Urban Meyer could be a good NFL head coach?
Well, he certainly knows enough football to do it. I think it's a risky move by Jacksonville because if you're bringing someone like Urban Meyer in, you're giving that person full control of the operation. You're not bringing Urban Meyer in to listen to a bunch of other people and just have him run the team. So I also look at that and say he's stepped away before because of health reasons. So, where is that? Hopefully he's in a good spot. I just look at the history of coaches going from college to pro. It usually does not go well. Jimmy Johnson is the big exception. But you look at guys like Steve Spurrier and Chip Kelly and so on and so forth. I think it's hard because in college you're used to bringing in kids who are 18 years old and being able to tell them whatever you want to tell them, and they really don't have an option but to listen. These guys in the professional ranks are like, look, man, I make more money than you. I don't need to listen to you. You need to treat me like a man, not a kid. That's a big adjustment. Can he make it? Maybe. History, though, not on the side of a team that hires a college coach.
I'm with you there, and most of the times I'd say I would have I would be cautious as well. I guess the thing that for me personally that I kind of like about this is that obviously Jacksonville is a very young team, so it's the closest you can, I guess, possibly get to a college team in the NFL with all the youth and all the draft picks the Jaguars have. But plus, I mean, I feel like this is easier said than done. But when you look at the NFL, the best coaches are able to do this. I personally feel like at least Urban Meyer is able to put his players in positions to succeed, which, again, it sounds simple, it sounds easy to do, but, we watch the NFL every week. That is by far not the case. I guess I wonder maybe that factor alone will have at least or help command the respect of players, like you said, who are making more than him, that are adults, that have kids, that have families, compared to, dealing with 18 to 22-year-old college kids.
Well, he's going to have to change a little bit in his approach, like anybody coming from college will. And my biggest fascination now is what do they do in the draft? Because everybody just assumes they're going to take Trevor Lawrence, and maybe they will. But he coached Justin Fields at Ohio State. He recruited him. Is that his guy? Is he looking at this thing going, look, we can get Justin Fields. Let's call the Jets up and see if they'll move up one spot for 2 or 3 first-round picks. It's something that maybe he says, no, I'd rather have Lawrence, and that's fine. That's the way they go. But I do think at least now it's interesting to see if they go that route. And look, he knows football, and it's going to be a very popular hire there because he's a legend at the University of Florida for Title I, and it's 71 miles down the road. So I get it. Like for Jacksonville, I totally understand why they did it. I do think whenever you go out and you do something like that, you are running a risk.
At Matt Verderame on Twitter, national NFL reporter for Fansided. So, Matt, we'll go from young team in Jacksonville, right, to an older matchup down there in the Bayou, Tom Brady versus Drew Brees. I'm just curious, right? As we know, Tom Brady's history, obviously 0 for 2 this year against Drew Brees and the Saints. Is there any way in your mind Tom Brady goes 0 for 3?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a way. Look, I went back and did the research. So since the 1970 merger, there have been 20 instances before this one where a team has had a shot to sweep a 3-game set against another team. And those teams that had the opportunity to do so are 13-7. They're 6-2 since 2000. So, people always like to say, well, it's so hard to beat a team. Well, apparently it's twice as hard to beat a team or once in that situation than it is 3 times. I do understand why some of you would take Tampa, and Tampa certainly can win the game. I mean, this is not going to be a walk in the park for New Orleans. I think, though, for New Orleans to lose, the Buccaneers have to change the way they play defensively. And I don't know if you do that at this point. Like, it's easy enough to say, well, just don't blitz them as much. But that's who Tampa Bay is. They blitz a ton. Only the Cardinals blitz more in the NFC this year. So you start looking at that and saying if they blitz a lot, if they stick to who they are, New Orleans gets rid of the ball fast. Breeze is going to dump the ball off to Kamara and Thomas and these quick little hitters. And once you do that, if you complete it, there's not as many defenders to tackle. All of a sudden, one missed tackle turns into a big play. So, look, I like the Saints in a close game. The Buccaneers certainly have a shot. I wouldn't want to be betting that game, but I do think the Saints, they just match up well. They don't have to blitz to get pressure. They have Jordan and Hendrickson. Um, it's a weird matchup for Tampa. We'll see if this time's the charm for them.
And it's interesting too going to this game because it's almost like two teams going on different tracks. Like obviously the Buccaneers, especially on offense, have been really heating up the last month. Now, granted, it's been against opponents that aren't the best defensively or struggle. So you have that taken into account. When you look at the Saints side, obviously Drew Brees with the ribs isn't the same Drew Brees as he was healthy. And obviously the two times the Buccaneers faced him, he was healthy before these rib fractures really kind of took a hold of his body. So it sounds like, at least in your mind, whether either you're not believing in the Buccaneers' offensive success of the last month, or are you trusting more Drew Brees, despite the injuries, that he'll be able to find a way and get it done?
Well, it's a combination of I trust the Saints defense, which is really good. And the Buccaneers have basically beaten Yumi and Vanderbilt the last month. So, I believe in that stuff. Like, to me, that's fine. Like, they've won. And hey, give them credit. They beat who's on the schedule. But going and beating New Orleans on the road is a lot different than beating Atlanta or beating Detroit in some game where Detroit had, like, their special teams coach as the head coach. I don't look at that game and care. Like,
right.
The Bucs have to go. And in the NFL, it's not a best of 7; it's a best of 60, and it's about styles and making fights. You need to be able to beat the team that you're matching up with. And when I look at this weekend, I do think it's very interesting, really across the board. There are matchups that I do think gives the underdog a shot. Like the Buccaneers, I do think have a shot in the game as a slight underdog. You look at them and say, okay, look, they're the best team in the NFL against the run. If they can stop the run, they can force Brees to throw the ball and maybe go, 3rd and 8, force him to drive the ball outside the numbers. That's something he can't do. You look at the other games. The only game maybe that there's not a distinct way they can win is Cleveland, although even them, they can run the ball. But I think you look at the underdogs this weekend. Sure, there are ways, but they're favorites for a reason. And I do like the Saints who have not only beaten the Bucs twice, but have really just taken it to them in both games.
Oh, yeah, they absolutely have. That is for sure. Matt Verderame, national NFL reporter for Fansided. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame, Verderame, Stacking the Box podcast host as well. Make sure to download that. So Matt, we'll stick in the NFC then. At least, obviously, the other matchup is going to be Rams and Packers. I mean, you just talk about, from a pure head-to-head standpoint, two have argued that the best units, just flat-out units, in the playoffs left, the Rams defense, Packers offense. Obviously, it's an offensive-driven league. Packers are at home. But who has the advantage in your mind? Do you give the Rams defense an edge here with how good they've been, or is it still, despite, how good they are and despite Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers having a hell of a year, they have the advantage heading to this matchup?
I always give the offense the advantage in today's NFL, especially when the great quarterback's involved. So, to me, Rodgers has the advantage. That being said, if Donald's healthy and they can get pressure on him, as great as Rodgers is, he's one quarterback that he sometimes, the difference between him under pressure and not under pressure is legitimately massive. And I think we saw that, against Tampa Bay. Now, look, every quarterback is worse under pressure, but Rodgers, the difference is just when you watch it, sometimes he can get frustrated. Now, I do think he's MVP of the league this year. He's been playing great football. The Rams are not only going to have to get pressure, they're going to have to cause, at least in my opinion, a turnover, force him to maybe miss on some throws he would normally hit because they're just all over him. And they're going to have a shot to do that. Donald is the best defensive player in the league. Brockers and Floyd are excellent. David Bakhtiari not being there is a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
The Rams are the best team in the league yards per play against. They're the best team in the league in terms of yards given up per attempt, per pass attempt. So this is a team that certainly is capable of going in there and causing. But the other question I have, though, is with Goff, how many points can they score? The Packers' defense isn't great, but Goff is dealing with a broken thumb. He wasn't great in the Seattle game, but they were able to win. He's got to be better. He doesn't have to be great, but can he throw for 250 and not turn the ball over? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but I do think it's an interesting game. I think the Rams are going to be in it.
I'm with you. Like I said, if it wasn't for Jared Goff, there's really almost I mean, I could probably make the argument. If there's almost any other offense on the other side of the ball for the Rams, on their team at least, than what Jared Goff has, I think you would say they have a legitimate puncher's chance with that defense.